Private. A private was the first and most common rank in the Australian Army in World War II, where new soldiers began. Their role was to learn teamwork, follow routines, and perform tasks that kept units working. Privates set up camps, moved supplies, maintained equipment, and supported leaders. They worked under corporals or sergeants, taking orders via platoon sergeant from the lieutenant. Branch trade titles at the same rank included trooper, armoured, gunner, artillery, sapper, engineers, signalman, signals, driver, transport, and craftsman, workshops. Privates held no command authority and wore no rank insignia. Lance Corporal. A Lance Corporal in the Australian Army during World War II was the first step into leadership. Selected from reliable privates, they led a small team within the section, set sentry rosters, checked equipment, and relayed orders. Authority extended over privates only. In artillery units, the equivalent title was Lance Bombardier. Insignia was a single chevron on the sleeve. When the corporal was absent, a Lance Corporal acted as second in command of the section. Training came through NCO courses and supervised practice outdoors. Promotion was by selection based on reliability, steadiness, and supervision. Corporal. A corporal in the Australian Army during World War II was the primary small team leader across branches, except artillery, where the equivalent rank was bombardier. They directed drills and tasks, allocated duties, enforced safety, checked weapons and equipment, maintained discipline, and reported results to the next level of command. Authority extended over Lance Corporals and privates. Corporals ensured orders were understood, standards were met, and readiness was maintained during work, movement, and action. Insignia was 2 chevrons. Promotion was by selection for steady leadership, instruction, reliability, and proven control of small groups. Sergeant. In the Australian Army during World War II, a sergeant was the senior non-commissioned leader responsible for standards, training, and day-to-day control of small groups. Across branches, they supervised corporals and privates, ran inspections, checked equipment and safety, issued taskings, and mentored junior NCOs. In infantry, the sergeant commonly held the platoon sergeant appointment, the lieutenant's principal second in command, coordinating drills, movement, reports, and administration. Authority covered Lance Corporals and privates. Insignia was 3 chevrons. Promotion was by selection for steady leadership, instruction, administration, and field performance with progression towards Staff Sergeant or Warrant Officer. Staff Sergeant. In the Australian Army during World War II, a Staff Sergeant was a senior NCO between Sergeant and Warrant Officer Class 2. Common in technical and administrative arms, they held appointments such as Company Quartermaster Sergeant, Workshop or Stores Lead, and Training or Records Supervision. They coordinated inspections, equipment care, and safety standards, ensured drills correct, and prepared reports. Staff Sergeants reported to the Company, Squadron or Battery Sergeant Major, appointments held by Warrant Officers Class 2, and supported supply under Quartermaster. Insignia was 3 chevrons with a crown. Promotion recognised leadership and trade or administrative mastery. Warrant Officer Class 2. In the Australian Army during World War II, Warrant Officer Class 2 was a senior enlisted rank responsible for unit standards and discipline. The appointment most commonly held was Company, Squadron, or Battery Sergeant Major. Warrant Officer Class 2 coordinated training, inspections, parades, and equipment checks across multiple sections, advised the officer commanding on welfare and readiness, and ensured orders were implemented correctly. Authority extended over all non-commissioned officers and soldiers in the sub-unit. Insignia was a single crown, Tudor King's Crown in World War II, inside a wreath. Promotion recognised consistent leadership, administration, and exemplary conduct under pressure. Warrant Officer Class 1. Warrant Officer Class 1 in the Australian Army during World War II was the senior warrant rank, most often holding the Regimental Sergeant Major appointment. Warrant Officers Class 1 set standards for drill, dress, discipline and training across the battalion or regiment, advised the commanding officer on soldier welfare, coordinated parades and inspections, and supervised all company or squadron sergeant majors. Authority covered every non-commissioned officer and soldier in the unit. Insignia was the Australian coat of arms. Promotion reflected long, reliable service, administration, and the capacity to uphold standards across operations, movement, and rest. Second Lieutenant. A second lieutenant in the Australian Army during World War II was the first commissioned rank. Commissions followed officer training or battlefield selection. They typically commanded a platoon of about 30 to 40 soldiers, issuing orders, planning routines, guiding training, and ensuring clear communication. Practical leadership was delivered with the platoon sergeant as principal assistant. Duties included movement control, discipline, and returns for weapons and ammunition. Authority covered all non-commissioned officers and soldiers in the platoon. Insignia was a single Bath star on the shoulder strap. Acting and temporary appointments were common. Lieutenant. A lieutenant in the Australian Army during World War II was a junior commissioned officer, usually continuing as a platoon commander or serving as company's second-in-command. Working with the platoon sergeant, they issued orders, planned training, coordinated movement, and ensured reports on personnel, weapons, and ammunition were accurate. Many acted for the company commander during absences, prepared orders, and liaised with adjacent units and supporting arms. Authority extended over all non-commissioned officers and soldiers within their command. Shoulderboard insignia was 2 Bath stars. Promotion typically followed service as second lieutenant with assessments. Captain. A captain in the Australian Army during World War II was a mid-level commissioned officer. Most served as company second-in-command or as company commanders, and many held specialist appointments such as adjutant or quartermaster. Captains translated battalion orders into company plans, scheduled training, allocated stores, approved returns, and coordinated support from artillery, engineers, signals, and transport. In artillery, the battery captain managed gun positions, ammunition supply and movement. Captains supervised all non-commissioned officers and soldiers within their company when commanding. Shoulderboard insignia was 3 Bath stars. Promotion followed platoon command and assessments. Major. A major in the Australian Army during World War II was a senior company grade officer. Most commanded a company, squadron or battery. Many served as battalion's second-in-command. Majors turned battalion intent into practical orders, set training priorities, balanced manpower, weapons and ammunition, and coordinated support from artillery, engineers, signals, transport, and medical teams. They supervised company administration, discipline and welfare through the company sergeant major and platoon commanders, and they controlled movement on operations and during reliefs. When acting as Battalion 2 IC, they managed reports and logistics while the CO focused on operations. Shoulderboard insignia was a single crown, King's Crown in World War II. Lieutenant Colonel. A lieutenant colonel in the Australian Army during World War II typically commanded a battalion or regiment. They issued unit orders, set training policy, allocated manpower, weapons and ammunition, and coordinated supporting arms and services. The immediate command team comprised the second-in-command, major, adjutant, administration, quartermaster, supply, and the regimental sergeant major, standards and discipline. Battalion HQ also carried specialists, intelligence, signals, medical, for staff support. Authority extended over all ranks in the unit. Shoulderboard insignia was a crown above a single Bath star, King's Crown pattern in World War II. Colonel. A colonel in the Australian Army during World War II was a senior field grade officer, usually employed in formation or staff roles rather than unit command. Typical appointments included senior staff officer at divisional or corps headquarters, command of training establishments or base/sub-area formations, and director or deputy director roles within branches such as artillery, engineers, signals, medical, or ordnance. Colonels translated higher-level intent into policy, supervised planning, manpower and equipment priorities, and coordinated support across multiple units. They oversaw discipline and administration through subordinate commanders. Shoulder-board insignia was a crown above 2 Bath stars. Brigadier. A brigadier in the Australian Army during World War II commanded a brigade, typically several battalions with attached artillery, engineers, signals, transport and medical support. They issued formation operation orders, set training priorities, allocated manpower, weapons and ammunition across units, and coordinated supporting fires and movement. The headquarters staff commonly included the brigade major, operations and orders, a staff captain for administration and supply, and specialist officers, intelligence, signals, medical, with a senior warrant officer for standards. Brigadiers liaised upward with divisional headquarters and laterally with adjacent brigades. Shoulderboard insignia was a crown above 3 Bath stars. Major General. A Major General in the Australian Army during World War II commanded a division or held senior roles at corps or higher headquarters. They set divisional policy, issued operations orders and balanced manpower, weapons, transport, engineers, signals, medical support across brigades. Their headquarters included officers for operations, intelligence, logistics and medical who turned intent into plans and returns. Major Generals supervised discipline and administration through brigade commanders and coordinated with corps headquarters and adjacent formations. Shoulderboard insignia was the crossed baton and sword, with 1 Bath star. Lieutenant General. A Lieutenant General in the Australian Army during World War II commanded a corps or held senior roles at Army or National Headquarters. They directed operations for several divisions, setting priorities for movement, supply, engineers, signals, medical support, and artillery across a wide area. Their headquarters coordinated plans, intelligence, logistics, and communication so subordinate formations could act together. Lieutenant Generals balanced resources between sectors, approved major offensives or withdrawals, and aligned objectives with overall theatre strategy. They supervised discipline and administration through division and brigade commanders. Shoulderboard insignia was the crossed baton and sword with a crown. General. A general in the Australian Army during World War II held the highest operational rank in wartime, commanding an army or serving as theatre commander. They set overall strategy, approved campaigns, and directed several corps and supporting services to one plan. Headquarters integrated operations, intelligence, logistics, communications, engineers, medical, and transport across wide regions, coordinating closely with air and naval commands and allied forces. Discipline and administration ran through corps and division commanders. Shoulderboard insignia was the crossed baton and sword with a crown above and a Bath star below.